Hello, my name's Jasper, you're watching Buckle Up, and this is a Peugeot 508 SW plug-in hybrid. If you go back 5 to 10 years, Peugeots weren't exactly the best cars you would find on the road, and nor were they the most stylish either. However, now Peugeot have really upped the game when it comes to quality, styling and their product range. This 508 is kind of their flagship executive saloon and or estate car. This particular model, being the SW, means it's an estate. You can explain that one to me in the comments. But it is really a beautiful looking car. So let's have a look around the outside at some of that styling. Starting at the front of the car, we can see what is quite a refined but ever so slightly sporty design that's got some really classy touches on it. Peugeot have given it quite a bluff front, but within the shape of the bumper they've curved back in towards the headlights, which are recessed in from the front of the car, with the bonnet slightly overhanging the top of it. We've got some lovely creases that work their way down the length of the bonnet, and this grille down here is just very classy. At the front of the car, one of the standout features styling wise is the headlight and daytime running light design, with the headlights curving in from the side of the car with two LED modules in there, and then this excellent fang style LED running light that curves in from the outside towards the center of the car. It's meant to look like the fangs of a big cat. Whether it does or not, I'll leave that up to you, but I do quite like the styling at the front of the car. It's classy, but has touches of sport, and it's just very refreshing, because Peugeots several years ago looked a bit crap, to be honest. This is clean and interesting. At the side of the car, you can see just how long it is, because for this class of car it is actually surprisingly lengthy. However, it doesn't look bad. The bonnet is quite long, but the cabin swoops nicely back from it, and actually the boot line is very classy. And that's quite a running theme with this car overall, actually. It's a very nicely put together, classy bit of design work. The only thing that I'm not overly sure about on the side of the car is the way they've badged the hybrid, because this is the plug-in hybrid model, but they've badged it as a hybrid. Not sure why they've done that. The alloys do look a little bit small for this size of car. There's quite a lot of sidewall on these tyres, but that does mean it will ride quite comfortably as well. The doors are frameless, which is just beautiful and classy, and I really like the integrated roof bars that contrast nicely in this chrome silver trim. It marries up nicely with the one that goes across the top of the window line and all the way back across the bottom of the door line. There's not a great deal else to speak about at the side of the car. It does have keyless entry, which don't get me started on. And you do have a fuel flap on both sides, but only one of them's actually for fuel, the other one's for the battery plug-in. And onto the back of the car, where you can see quite a lot of sporty design touches here, because we've got twin chrome tipped exhausts, we've got a black, gloss black actually, rear diffuser, and we've got some gloss black trim which beautifully merges into the smoke effect rear light clusters. This combination of darkened glass, black plastic, then bodywork red, and then black plastic again looks really good. It's quite eye-catching, and it's a very well-rounded bit of design work actually. There's some nice profiling on the edge of the light clusters, and the whole rear end is actually very well tied together. It's not too boxy, it curves down beautifully, and I do like the fact that Peugeot is spelled out across the bottom of the glass here. You can also see that these light clusters have the 3 kind of claw scratches in that is becoming a little bit of a repeated styling feature on Peugeots that are being redesigned at the moment. The 208 has them at the front in its headlights, for example, and at the back we also have the 508 and hybrid badging as well. That's going to be a thing for this video. I've decided that. Boot space on the 508 SW is a total of 530 litres with the seats up, which is quite impressive given it's a plug-in hybrid, because what you often find with plug-in hybrids is you sacrifice some boot space because the batteries go under the boot floor. Never mind the carpet, I've just been doing a bit of shopping for my new house. Christ, no, you wouldn't catch me dead with a carpet like that. The boot is a very practical size and shape. It's quite boxy, and you've got a range of cubbies at the side of it, elastic strapping, carrier bag hooks, and there's a little bit of a portion under the boot floor here, but the rest of it is taken up with batteries. You've definitely got space to carry around your charging cable, and you've also got levers to drop the rear seats. The rear seats are sprung, and with a pull of this lever it drops them for you, which saves you faffing about in the back seats and actually folding them down. If you do fold the rear seats down, you are greeted with over 1,700 litres of space, which is very impressive. It's a surprisingly practical car, this. Now, the back seats of an estate car are generally what it's all about, actually, because if you have an estate you tend to need that extra practicality that the boot and rear seats give you, and that is really good in the 508 SW. There's a ton of legroom. I mean, obviously I'm not the tallest of humans, but there is a ton of legroom back here, and sitting up straight my head doesn't touch the ceiling, and I think if you were maybe 3 inches taller than me, you'd also be okay. So somebody who's 5'10" would probably be all right for headroom back here. And if you slouch, 6 foot, no problem. The seats are tremendously comfortable, and I love the fabric that's been used on them. There's a 2-tone kind of plastic, leather and fabric combination in quite a nice pattern, and they're very well padded, and they don't make you sit up too upright. They're a nice angle, and the interior, the materials back here are brilliant, actually. All the way up the door cards you've got soft touch material around the handle, lower down obviously into a more tactile plastic, but it doesn't matter, does it? All of the places you're touching are lovely, and the backs of these seats are quite a nice material, fabric covered plastic. You've got a map pocket on the back of both the driver and passenger seats, and these front seats, while they're quite sporty and hug the passengers and driver in the front, they don't intrude too much into your view sitting in the back here. You can see an excellent amount between the seats and looking forwards. You've got a couple of cup holders in the centre armrest, and there's a ski hatch pass-through as well here. And actually, practicality wise, it's pretty good. You've got rear air vents, a 12-volt socket, and door bins, which they aren't the biggest, but you could get probably a 500 milliliter bottle of water in here, and then a few bits and pieces if you need to. On the whole, nice back here, very nice. No grab handles, surprisingly, but then again, it's not the sportiest of cars. Got a little suit hook though. Oh, you've also got tinted rear windows, so privacy glass, which adds an element of class to sitting back here as well, as you're chauffeured around by mum or dad. Now, the front of this car really is a, to use a motoring journalist cliche, nice place to be. And that is because the materials you are surrounded by are excellent. Everything you can possibly put your hands on round here is soft touch. You feel nicely enclosed by the combination of the center console and door card, and it does feel a little bit like a cockpit because you are able to sit nice and low in this car. You've got quite a high dashboard and low roofline, so there's definitely enough visibility, but the windscreen is quite compressed and you feel very surrounded, but not in a bad way. I don't feel claustrophobic, Darren. I'm claustrophobic, Darren! I'm claustrophobic!
I'm claustrophobic, Darren! I'm claustrophobic!
Everything up front feels very driver focused because the infotainment screen is tilted towards you. You've got all of the controls within very easy reach and a nice large digital gauge cluster in front of you, which is set higher. And people have complained about not being able to see the gauges because the steering wheel gets in the way, but if you've got it all properly adjusted, you've got the steering wheel low enough that they don't obstruct your view of the gauges, and that's coming from somebody who's quite short. The seat has a lot of adjustability in it. You can move it quite a long way forwards and backwards. You can really get yourself very comfortable. The steering wheel's a nice size and shape. It's quite compact, but that kind of adds to the slightly sporty driving experience you get here. You've got cruise controls on a separate paddle below the steering wheel. You've got shift paddles here because this is the plug-in hybrid with an 8-speed automatic gearbox, and the switchgear all feels very nice. Beautiful start-stop engine button. This automatic gear lever is quite classy. These keys below the infotainment screen, which get you to your shortcut functions, are gorgeous. They're kind of piano-esque in their function, and everything, it looks and feels brilliant, with the tiniest exception of this slightly fake looking carbon fibre woven type trim, which I'm pretty confident will just be some kind of vinyl over a foam, but it definitely doesn't detract too much. The interior is excellent because it's well put together, the material choices are very good, and it's surprisingly practical. You've got an excellent large cubby holder here on the centre console with a 12-volt socket in it, and that's definitely deep enough to put, I don't know, a phone, a few bits and pieces. You've got quite a large centre armrest here, which is deep and has an aux connection in it. And below this portion of the centre console, you've got a USB port on either side, which allows you to plug charging cables into. And it's actually quite a large area that would allow you to put, say, a map or any kind of toll cards or something you needed regular-ish access to and wanted to know exactly where it was. Excellently sized door bins as well, and you've got 2 cup holders here in the centre. On the whole, I am a big fan of this interior. Right. Parking brake released. Good. Just gonna adjust that on the fly because I'm short. By default, when you start driving, this car will set off and remain in electric only mode, which is quite nice for just pootling around if you're only running a short errand. However, with this drive mode selected down here, you can change into hybrid and then a sport mode as well. And when you put it into sport, it does get a little bit pokey. All in all, this car has 225 brake horsepower, which is enough for an estate of this kind of size, and it does mean that actually if you do plant your foot, once the engine's kicked in and the gearbox has sorted itself out, it's surprisingly rapid. One thing I must say is that the ride quality in this car is very good. It's well damped, and while it's not a stiff suspension setup, it's stiff enough that the car handles well round corners. The steering's very fast, but you don't get too much feedback through the steering wheel. Not too much of an issue though on a car it's not a sporty car, is it? The all-round visibility is pretty good, definitely forwards and sideways in the wing mirrors. They are excellently sized and shaped for rear visibility. However, through the back, because it's an estate with quite a sloped roofline towards the rear of the car, it is quite a narrow letterbox that you're able to see through. Not horrendous though. I've definitely driven cars with worse rear visibility than this. It's a good enough chassis that you can kind of throw it into a corner and have a little bit of fun, which is all you want really if you've got a plug-in hybrid, just enough to have a little bit of fun. The large sidewalls on the tyres do soak up bumps in the road very nicely, and the set-off, because of the electric motor, is very good. That initial torque kick from the EV powertrain elements really helps you get moving, and then the engine takes over when you're in standard hybrid mode. Progress can be made quite quickly. Now, because the brakes have a regenerative function, they aren't overly sharp. They're actually a little bit less impressive than I was hoping they'd be. I did have to brake a little bit hard coming up to that junction then, because it didn't quite stop as fast as I was expecting it to. But then again, any kind of braking where you can recoup a little bit of charge for the battery isn't a bad thing. It boosts that electric only range, and it means that you don't have to plug it in as frequently. The drivetrain in this is a 180 horsepower petrol engine paired with a 110 horsepower electric motor, but combined, for some strange reason, you only get a total of 225 brake horsepower. How Peugeot managed to get that, I'm not quite sure, but it's definitely enough. It's definitely enough. It doesn't even sound too bad when it's really revving. It's a good driving experience on the whole, definitely. One thing I do like is how sporty the seating position feels, because you can get the seat so low in the car and you're kind of surrounded by the interior. You do feel nicely planted, and that really does help with making the driving experience feel a little bit more exciting. Now, I mentioned earlier, I think, that the steering wheel is quite small, and the other thing to mention when I'm talking about the steering wheel is it's not technically a wheel, I guess, because it's a bit more of an octagonal shape, a rounded octagon we're going to go with. The steering wheel sits nicely in your hands, and the shape of it is actually quite good. Yeah, when you're turning with this, the slightly unusual shape doesn't actually detract from the process of turning it. It's interesting, and I think that's quite a running theme with this car actually. It's a little bit different, but not in a bad way. Like that, we've got the styling, which is relatively conventional, but has a few nice modern elements in it, and the same can be said about the interior. It's really well put together, it's quite classy, and everything works, and it's exactly where you think it should be. It's a really well thought out car and a very good package all in all. So there you have the Peugeot 508 SW Hybrid. It is a very competent all-rounder. It's got just the right amount of class paired with quite a sporty seating position and just enough sport in its drive to make it a really good all-round purchase. And especially as the move towards more efficient cars is happening, this plug-in hybrid gives you quite a good blend of both petrol and futuristic electric drive. Now, it's not the sportiest plug-in hybrid that Peugeot make. There is the 508 PSE, which has about 360 horsepower, which would be very, very tasty. But for everyday use and for the practicality that this car gives you, it's a very good choice if you're in the market for a new, quite stylish, businessy estate. That is everything from me in this video. If you've enjoyed it, please remember to let us know in the comments and give the video a like. If you haven't subscribed to the Buckle Up YouTube channel already, maybe consider doing so. We have YouTube memberships and a Patreon, so please feel free to check those out if you'd like to support the channel directly. Alternatively, we have some lovely merchandise, so if you want to support us and get some clothing, you could do that. That's everything from me, so please check out some of our other content and we'll see you next time. Bye.